Hi there everyone, it's Nicole here today with a Build a Kitchen Scene Baked with Love card. It's probably no secret if you've seen any of my videos, I absolutely love to build scenes for my cards, and this one is so super fun because I actually built the scene using some stamp sets plus kind of just some imagination. Not everything was actually a stamp. To start, what centers everything is, of course, this great group of small appliances and bowls and a cookie jar and cookies and everything. And I needed an oven. While there is a new oven coming out in Lawn Fawn's Fall and Winter release, I needed something a little smaller for this scene. Well, an older Lawn Fawn stamp set, the +1 stamp set, has a cute little oven. It has a face on it, plus it has a little muffin in the oven, or a bun, I guess, because it's a baby themed stamp set, but I want to use it a little different. So I just was kind of careful, inked all the way around the image. The top part of the oven does not matter. I'm going to be cutting that off anyway, but I just inked around the edges and then stamped that on some smooth white cardstock, leaving the little muffin there in the oven out. I did have to take a black pen. You probably saw me there drawing in some of the lines, but really I didn't have to be so super perfect with it. I'm going to be putting a cookie in the oven instead, so it's not really going to affect anything. Now, I kept my oven pretty basic. It is definitely not the highlight of the scene, but it really does help give that illusion or that feeling of a kitchen or baking in a kitchen. So the outside of the oven is going to be some darker markers, cool grays 6, 8, and 9. The inside is going to be more lighter cool gray colors rather. So my cool gray 0, 0, 1, 2, plus a little blue-green 10, which is a cool shadow. The knobs on the oven also going to be lighter colors. Now you can see I went ahead and fussy cut that. That's simply just cutting on the black line of the stamp. I did not use the coordinating die for this. I'm not going to use coordinating dies for any of my images here today. I also have taken a brick stencil. I think this is from My Favorite Things and maybe isn't available anymore, but there are tons of brick stencils out there, or brick stamps, or just something to add texture. I wanted a brick wall looking kind of behind everything, or a backsplash. So I used some white embossing paste with that, and then I'm going to set that aside to dry while I work on my kitchen cabinets. I've already trimmed down some cardstock here, plus some cabinet doors, and I'm using the Lawn Fawn wood grain backdrops and some Gathered Twigs Distress ink. Inking them up, they don't look like much when you just ink them up straight with that ink, but then I'm taking the ink blending tool and applying Gathered Twigs Distress ink over that. Going to ink up my base cabinets plus all my cabinet doors. And then to reinforce the feeling that these are cabinets, I need to add some sort of knobs. I think parentheses would work great for like handles, but I ended up using this teeny tiny, I think it's probably like a little gumball or something like that, from the Lawn Fawn Just For You stamp set. And I inked it up with black licorice ink and stamped it on those 3 cabinet doors. And then I'm simply going to take foam adhesive behind each of these squares, these are 1-inch squares, and place them along my strip. Now, before I even started, I probably should mention that strip is 5.5 inches long by 1.25 inches tall. I'm just taking a black brush pen and going around those edges. Sometimes when you fussy cut, I don't like to see those white edges, so I like to go around them with a black brush pen, kind of help cover that up a little bit. I placed my first cabinet on the left there, trying to keep the spacing pretty even. I'm going to attach my oven now, and then I will attach my remaining 2 cabinet doors. That just gets my spacing correct for the rest of the card. So I've got my bricks that's going to be the top of the card. I now have my cabinet and oven unit, which is going to go along the bottom of the card. Go ahead and get this rest of this foam adhesive on. The foam adhesive helps give that dimension and really helps them look a little like more cabinets. If you laid them flush, I don't think they would stand out quite as well. I'm also adding glossy accents to the knobs. Going to reinforce that feeling that they actually open, and to all of the knobs on the oven. Then I can set that aside to completely dry while I work on another area of the card. A lot of this was just trying to do anything that needed to sit and dry, making sure that I did that and just set it aside so it dried while I stamped and colored all of my images. The remaining images for the card and what inspired this whole design are from the Lawn Fawn Milk and Cookies stamp set and Baked with Love. I love that so many of the stamp sets work so well together. In fact, my card last month for Lawn Fawn was very similar, where I incorporated lots of different Lawn Fawn stamps to create a scene. I think you really get so much more use out of your stamps if you work that way. So a lot of times I like to try to see what will mix and match and go together. I am coloring everything in with Copic markers. The colors I'm using are shown across the bottom of the screen. I've got my wooden spoon, and I skipped around a lot while I was coloring for whatever reason. I also tried to stick to a color scheme. I wanted to do everything in shades of aqua or teal and blue. So I call it my KitchenAid mixer, is going to be aqua. In fact, I have an aqua mixer that I love. So that's kind of what inspired this mixer here. I'm using a couple shades of blue-green in 32 and 49. And I'll just work that until I get the color, shading, all of that the way I want it to look. Blend it all out. Then I will move on to the bowl of the mixer and the accents on the mixer themselves. I'm going to use some cool gray markers here in much lighter colors, cool grays, I believe 2, 1, and 0, 0. Maybe even pull in a little cool gray 4 to deepen some areas. I wanted it to look like a stainless steel mixing bowl. Here's a little bit darker color. To reinforce that even more, I'm going to do some finishing details once I have the card all put together. The bowl itself, this is where I'm going to pull in a different color, different color of blue. So I'm using B34 and 99, but I also want to reinforce those aqua colors, but don't want it to be too matchy-matchy where everything is exactly the same. So this is a little bit lighter with BG10 and BG13. I'm going to darken up some of the more royal blue areas of this bowl. The stripe and the inside are lighter. The cookie jar, I'm going to do the same kind of color combination that I did for the bowl. So it's going to be blue and aqua. Again, just work those colors in until I get the blending the way I want it to look. Lighter strip around the top of the cookie jar and the handle. Next, I am going to color in my rolling pin. Oh, I actually skipped to the eggs. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do with that rolling pin. So the eggs are actually E40 and E43, kind of brown eggs here. Then the cookies, I went ahead and did E31 and E55. I was still trying to kind of figure out exactly how I wanted to color in my rolling pin. I knew I wanted it to be colorful, so I skipped to something that I knew how I wanted to color it. I did the handles of my rolling pin in the brown kind of wood grain colors again to coordinate with the wooden spoon. But for the actual rolling pin itself, I'm going to use some of my blue-green colors, make that bright and colorful. Trying to find the right balance between neutrals and colors for this card. And then I have the flower bag and the cake plate left. The cake plate, I definitely want to have that be a color of some sort, and I'm going to use my lighter blue-green colors for it. And the flower bag is going to be a nice neutral, so cool grays. That cake plate is BG10 and BG13. Have it be kind of lighter than the stand mixer and the rolling pin. And then a little glossy accent so it maybe looks like a glass cake plate was kind of my thinking there. Then my bag of flour is going to be in shades of cool gray. Again, this is going to be a nice neutral. I've got plenty of color going on with the rolling pin, bowl, mixer, cake plate, and cookie jar. So my neutrals are definitely the wooden spoon, the eggs, the cookies, and that bag of flour. Just finding a good balance of color. The bag itself is in shades of gray. The flour I'm going to do in a little E40 and E43, very, very light, just adding a touch of that. I don't really necessarily want it to have a ton of color. I just want it to not be stark white. Once I have these colored in, I do have a thin strip that I'm going to cut for the countertop out of white cardstock, and I simply took the chisel tip of a C9 marker and colored it in to coordinate with the oven. And then I'm using a Colorless Blender to create some little white or dots along the strip. They aren't going to necessarily be white, but it does move that ink out and gives a little texture to the countertop. Now I trimmed down my embossing paste brick background, which was a mistake. I originally thought I'd trim it down and just have a strip across the center of the card. And I decided I liked my original idea better of having the entire card front be the scene. So instead of doing an embossing paste brand new strip, I decided to piece together these strips. So I placed adhesive on my card front. You can see I pieced those two pieces together from the original strip where I added the embossing paste over the brick stencil. Then I added my oven, put one of the cookies in the oven. I fussy cut all of these images. I cut that completely out of the video because that's kind of a little time consuming. Then I glued my countertop in place. And now all that's left is to add all of my embellishments and create that kitchen counter scene. I thought it would be kind of fun to have my rolling pin and wooden spoon sticking out of the bowl. So I did use my craft knife to cut a little slit there in the bowl so it looks like they're tucked inside. All of the elements are tucked in front of and behind just to look like kind of a cluttered kitchen counter in the middle of baking cookies. Add these last couple of pieces, my bag of flour and cookies and eggs. Then I did need something or somewhere to place my greeting, and I'm using a combination of greetings from the Milk and Cookies and Baked with Love, but I stamped a frame using black ink and a Flirty Frames stamped image. Then I'm going to stamp my greetings with a combination of Merman and Blue Jay Lawn Fawn inks, inking up just part of this Baked with Love, stamping the word baked there. Then I'm going to cover it up, just kind of mask it off. Be careful inking up the remaining part of the greeting. That's just going to protect that word from the rest of this so that the greeting completely fits inside of this great little frame. So it says Sweet Wishes Baked with Love. And I really feel like this frame is going to need something. Now for this, I actually did use the coordinating die So I'll place that there, die cut it, and then I'm just going to carefully color in the frame with my light blue-green markers. For the inside, I'm just going to go around the inside edges with the cool gray markers to add a little bit of shadow, little dimension to the frame, so it almost looks like this frame is hanging on the wall there behind the kitchen counter. Just a really super fun, creative way to build your own scene with lots of different stamps and dies from Lawn Fawn. To finish up the card, I am going to apply some glossy accents to parts of the stand mixer as well as the mixing bowl, as I mentioned earlier in the video. That's going to give it that nice glossy look. I'm using glossy accents with an applicator tip. Thanks for watching this video showcasing Lawn Fawn stamps and dies used to create a kitchen-themed scene card. The supplies I've used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more Lawn Fawn cards you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.